Supernatural's been around a little over half my lifetime, which is pretty wild. 307 episodes is a lot to keep track of, so before the 15th and final season comes out... Wait, is it actually ending? In any case, I'm Jacob with Cinematica, and I won't lay my weary head to rest until I'm done. With the first 5 seasons at least. Because I'm gonna be breaking this massive timeline into 2 parts, and the first one starts now. The Empty, before the beginning of time. The supernatural verse begins with the Empty, which predates the universe itself. The Empty is the home of the Shadow, a cosmic entity. At some point, Amara, otherwise known as the Darkness, and her baby brother, capital G God, come into being, and sometime later, so did Death. God created many universes, but Amara was compelled to destroy them. In order to protect his creations, God made the 4 archangels, Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Lucifer. Together, the archangels battled the Darkness, aka Amara, and sealed her away with the Mark, which served as both a key and a lock to Amara's cage. God entrusted the mark to his favorite archangel, Lucifer. I'm sure that'll work out super well for him. God then created the Leviathans, the first beasts, but they were a little too destructive, so God created Purgatory and locked the Leviathans there. After creating Purgatory, God created the universe along with heaven and the rest of the angels. Of those angels, he names one, Metatron, to be his scribe and keep the word of God. He creates the earth, humanity, and the souls of all living things, including Adam and Eve, the first humans. The angel Castiel is part of the angel Anna's garrison on Earth. They probably spend a few millennia watching fish evolve until humans are created? Supernatural's a little murky on how evolution works in this world. When God tells the angels that humans are the best of his creations, some of them don't take it super well, which is fair. I mean, has God seen humanity? We're trash. I have issues with his work ethic if this is the best he can do. Lucifer takes the whole humans are my favorite thing especially hard, and he also begins to feel the negative effects of the mark. It has the pesky side effect of giving its bearer an unquenchable desire to kill. Oh good! Lucifer starts his long career of fucking shit up by sneaking into the garden to corrupt humanity with the help of the angel Gadriel. Lucifer then asks his brother Michael to stand with him against God, but Michael takes God's side and begins a war, and Gadriel is imprisoned for the crime of letting Lucifer into the garden. During the war, God creates hell, and in it a cage for Lucifer. Lucifer creates the first demon, Lilith, who was originally a human. After Lilith, Lucifer makes the princes of hell, Azazel, Ramiel, Dagon, and Asmodeus. One of the early humans, Cain, makes a pact with Lucifer to keep his brother Abel out of hell. In exchange for letting Abel into heaven, Cain would kill his brother and take the mark from Lucifer. At this point, the mark becomes known as the Mark of Cain. Cain then kills himself, but is brought back as a demon. This'll be important in a few thousand years, trust me. Afterwards, Lucifer is finally defeated by Michael and imprisoned in the cage. Unable to take the family feud, the Archangel Gabriel leaves heaven. He meets Loki, they strike a bargain, and Loki allows Gabriel to assume his identity in order to hide from heaven. Later, God himself leaves heaven, just cause it's too much drama, you know? The Archangels decide to rule the universe themselves, and they need the word of God to do it, which is kept by Metatron. The angel Naomi is sent to get the word, but Metatron escapes to Earth and hides it. The only angel that still has contact with God is Joshua. In the meantime, after God abandoned his creation, humans begin to worship pagan gods. Things get biblical for a few thousand years, and then in 33 AD, all angels are recalled to heaven by Michael and ordered to not reveal themselves to humans until the apocalypse, which of course nearly happens in the Winchester brothers' lifetimes. Sometime in the 1300s, a human named Ruby sells her soul to the demon Astaroth and becomes a witch. She dies in the Black Plague and will later become a demon herself. In 1587, the colony of Roanoke in Virginia disappears. The only clue left behind is the word Croatoan carved into a tree, and believe it or not, this American mystery will bear heavily on the story to come. In 1661, Fergus MacLeod is born in Scotland. His mother teaches him witchcraft. As a young man, Fergus sells his soul to a crossroads demon for a bigger like you do. 10 years later, he's dragged into hell by hellhounds and becomes a demon known as Crowley. Eventually, he becomes Lilith's first lieutenant. Crowley is one of the few demons who opposes Lucifer, as Lucifer sees demons as abominations, despite the fact that he, you know, created them. Lots of abandoning your own creations here. And this won't be the last we hear from Crowley. In 1835, Samuel Colt builds the Colt, a gun that can kill almost anything. There are only 5 things the Colt can't kill, and one of them is Lucifer. And that's not all Samuel Colt creates. Sometime before 1861, he finishes the Devil's Gate, a doorway to hell in Wyoming. In 1861, Colt meets Sam and Dean Winchester, who have traveled back in time from 2011 to get Phoenix Ashes wishes to kill Eve, the mother of monsters. More on this when we get to 2011 and have actually met Sam and Dean chronologically. John Winchester is born in 1954 in Normal, Illinois, although his life will be anything but. He's born to Henry Winchester and his wife. Henry is a member of the Men of Letters, a secret society dedicated to gathering and protecting knowledge about the supernatural. He intends to raise his son John in that life. On December 5th of that year, Mary Campbell is born to Deanna and Samuel Campbell from the Campbell Hunter clan. On August 12, 1958, Henry Winchester leaves home never to return. Abaddon, a knight of hell, and Cain's protege, massacres the Men of Letters, but Henry escapes and travels to 2013. Back in 1958, John and his mother move to Lawrence, Kansas, and she remarries to a mechanic. April 24th, 1967 marks the birthday of one of the most important characters in Supernatural, the Impala. She comes off the assembly line in Janesville, Wisconsin, and that April birth, of course, makes her a Taurus. Secure, stubborn, down to earth. On March 23rd, 1972, John and Mary meet in Lawrence, and a Cupid causes them to fall in love. Later that year, in 1972, Azazel, the Prince of Hell, finds the gate to Lucifer's cage in a convent in Maryland. Azazel kills the nuns inside and is given instructions on how to spring Lucifer from his prison. He's told to free Lilith and then to find a child who will destroy the final seal. Castile sends Dean back to April 30th, 1973 from 2008. There he meets John and convinces him to buy the Impala instead of a minivan. Azazel kills Mary's parents and makes a deal with her to keep John alive. Dean is then transported back to the future. In an alternative universe, though, Mary refuses Azazel and John dies as a result. The universe becomes an apocalypse world. Back in our main timeline in 1978, Anna the Angel travels back from 2010 to kill John and keep Sam from being born. Sam, Dean, and Cass travel back in time to stop her. She nearly succeeds, but the Winchesters are saved by the Archangel Michael, who smites Anna and wipes John and Mary's memories. Then, in 1979, finally, Dean is born, followed by little bro Sam in 1983. Even though they've already been all over this timeline, isn't time travel fun? But the Winchesters' familial joy is short-lived. On November 2nd of 1983, Azazel pays a visit to the Winchester house and feeds baby Sam demon blood. Ugh, not even once. I've seen the PSAs about that. Mary tries to stop him, but Azazel puts her on the ceiling and sets her on fire, a scene that Supernatural diehards have probably seen hundreds of times at this point. The Winchester house is burnt to the ground, and the Winchester boys set out on the road to start saving people and hunting things. The family business. Sometime in 1992, Sam discovers that the supernatural is real and his father is a hunter, which is pretty heavy stuff for a 9-year-old. I barely would have been able to handle meeting Santa Claus at 9. Over the next 10 years, the Winchester boys have wacky adventures, like when Sam disappears for 2 weeks to eat pizza and hang with a dog named Bones, or when they team up to kill a werewolf in 1997. In 2001, Sam's prom date is possessed by a demon who reports to Azazel, and of course, Dean hooks up with her on prom night. In early 2002, Sam leaves his father and brother so he can attend college at Stanford. I wouldn't be surprised if this was at least partially motivated by that whole demon prom date thing. In 2004, Sam starts dating Jessica Moore, a fellow college student, after being introduced by their friend Brady, who happens to be possessed by a demon. And that brings us, at last, to the start of Season 1. From here on out, we're going to be following the chronology of the show, for the most part. Season 1, 2005 to 2006. In the fall of 2005, John Winchester goes on a hunting trip and then goes missing. Dean makes a trip to Stanford on Halloween to ask for Sam's help to find him. The boys don't find their father, but when they return to Stanford, Sam sees Jessica on the ceiling and on fire, just like their mother. This sets Sam and Dean on the road in search of John and following notes left in his journal. It doesn't take long for Sam and Dean to encounter a demon for the first time. They run into it in December. More hunting hijinks ensue, and in April of 2006, Sam meets a young woman named Meg while hitchhiking after a fight with Dean. Then in May, Sam and Dean fight a racist truck. This is not a major life event, I just think it's funny. Later that month, Sam reveals that he's been having visions since before Jessica died. Oh, and also he can move things with his mind. They meet another psychic kid who has much more developed powers. Meg meets the boys again at the end of May, and they throw her out of the window after learning that she's a demon. They briefly see John, who Meg had set a trap for. They're glad Dad's alive, but it's not exactly a warm reunion. Dean tells John to hit the road again. It's dangerous when they're all together. In June, the boys run into Harry Spengler and Ed Zedmore, ghost hunters who run the website Hellhound's Lair. Sam also superglues Dean's hand to a beer bottle during their prank war. Also not a major life event, but still funny. In July, John teams up with his sons to get the Colt from a nest of vampires. It only has a few bullets, and John needs them to kill Azazel. A few days later, Meg starts killing friends of the Winchesters to get the Colt. John agrees to give her the Colt to stop the killings, but tries to trick her by using a fake gun, and it doesn't go over super well, and Meg captures John. The boys visit beloved Idjit Bobby Singer in his salvage yard in hopes of finding a way to save their dad. They exorcise Meg, rescue John, and go to a safe house to hide. There, Dean becomes suspicious of how nice and paternal John is being, and discovers that their father is possessed by the yellow-eyed demon, aka Azazel. The demon tells them that he's the one who killed Mary and Jessica because they got in the way of his plans for Sam. As the demon attacks the boys, John forces himself to take control and grabs the Colt. Sam uses the last bullet to shoot John to free him from the demon. They pile in the Impala, and Sam rushes his father and brother to the hospital. Unfortunately, a demon possesses a truck driver on the way and rams into the car, leaving all three unconscious. Cut to black. That's a wrap on Season 1. Season 2, 2006 to 2007. Season 2 opens in the summer of 2006. While hospitalized, John Winchester makes a deal with Azazel that he'll go to hell and give him the Colt if Dean can live. Dean, who's been hanging out as a ghost, is pulled back into his body. The grieving boys spend time with Bobby before discovering a message on John's phone. It takes them to the roadhouse where they meet Ellen and Joe Harvell and the hillbilly hacker Ash. In September, they meet Andy, a young man who has psychic powers similar to Sam's, as well as a sick van and Moby Dick's bong. Sam worries that all of Azazel's psychic children turn bad. In November, Sam's visions take him to a town infected with the Croatoan virus, which is basically a demon biological weapon, and the same thing responsible for the disappearance of the Roanoke colony back in 1587. Ah, see, I told you that would come back. It turns out Azazel is behind the epidemic, and he's testing to see if Sam is immune, which, lucky for him, he is. A few months later, in February of 2007, the boys encounter the trickster for the first time, and they believe they kill him, but it's a trick! Ah, damn, if only we had some sort of hint about how tricky the trickster is. In April, that pesky Azazel is back. He kidnaps all the psychic kids and forces them to kill each other, Battle Royale style. Harvell's roadhouse is destroyed and Ash is killed, but Ellen and Joe make it out okay. Azazel explains that the surviving special kid will lead his demon army, so it's basically a lose-lose for all of the kids involved. Sam is stabbed by another one of the psychic kids, Jake, and dies, but this is supernatural, so it doesn't really take. Dean makes a deal with a demon in exchange for Sam's life. As a result, Dean has only 1 year to live. Azazel and Jake head to Samuel Colt's Devil's Gate to let the demons loose, but they're stopped by the whole Scooby Squad: Sam, Dean, Bobby, Ellen, Joe, and even Ghost John Winchester. Dean shoots Azazel with the Colt and kills him. They close the gate, but only after a ton of demons have escaped. Season 3, 2007 to 2008. Onward to Season 3! In our universe, the 2008 writer's strike cut this season short. If only they'd gone through this strike again in Season 12. We'll get to that eventually. In May 2007, or whatever equivalent measure of time they use in hell, Lilith kills all of her rivals and takes over. Back on Earth, Sam, Dean, and Bobby fight the 7 deadly sins because of course it couldn't be the little no-name demons who got out. They're saved by a mysterious knife-wielding woman who later turns out to be Ruby. The boys catch up with Lisa Braden in Cicero, Indiana. Dean had a one-night stand with her years ago, and surprise, he's got a son now. His name is Ben, and he's a lot like Dean. Lisa is quick to tell Dean that Ben isn't actually his son, but even so, we get our first look at Daddy Dean, and it is wonderful. Who all thinks they should give Dean a baby in Season 15? Ruby claims she can get Dean out of his whole die-in-a-year deal and starts giving the boys information about Azazel's special children. Sometime over the summer, Bella Talbot shows up and continues to be unsympathetic for the rest of the season. Then in July, Ruby helps Bobby create a special ritual that allows them to make new bullets for the Colt. But the Colt can't stay in one person's hands for too long. In early 2008, Bella steals the Colt. They try to give her a backstory to make this seem like it's not the worst decision, but it doesn't really pan out. Then Sam gets Groundhog Day'd by the same trickster from Season 2 who forces him to watch Dean die over and over again. In April, the boys find Bella and she's already given the Colt to Crowley, but the boys don't know that yet. She tells Dean that the demon Lilith holds her contract as well as Dean's. Shortly after, she's killed by hellhounds. Honestly, seems pretty fair. Bobby helps the boys track down Lilith. They then try to take her out with Ruby's knife, but Lilith takes over Ruby's body and Dean is killed by hellhounds. All in all, not a great showing for our heroes. With both Dean and Ruby dead, Sam gets ready to Hulk out on Lilith, but she smokes back to hell before he gets a chance. We end Season 3 with Dean in a very Clive Barker-esque hell. Season 4, 2008 to 2009. In Hell, Dean is tortured by Alistair, Hell's numero uno torture demon, for what seems to be 30 years in Hell years. Hell years are kinda like dog years. It's very convenient for when you want to do a time skip, but you don't actually want to do a time skip, because in the main timeline it's 2008. After 30 years, Dean agrees to start torturing souls to save himself. Ruby 2.0 and Sam spend time together trying to get revenge on Lilith while Dean's in Hell. They get to know each other, biblically, and Sam starts drinking demon blood to make his power stronger. The angel Castiel grips Dean tight and raises him from perdition on heaven's orders, and a million fanfic writers cried out in joy. For the first time in 2,000 years, angels are permitted to reveal themselves to humans, and Castiel shows himself to Dean. Demons, following Lilith, begin breaking seals to start the apocalypse. The Archangel Michael allows some of his angels to help Sam and Dean, but only to keep other angels from rebelling. He has no intention intention of stopping the apocalypse. In November, they find Anna Milton, the human girl who's actually an angel who left heaven and Castiel's former boss. Somewhere between the end of December 2008 and January 2009, Castiel and Uriel, an angel who also served in Anna's garrison, capture and torture Alistair. They can't torture him well enough though, so they recruit Dean to do their dirty work, so hey, I guess all of those hell years paid off. Alistair is killed by Sam, and juiced up Angel Anna saves Castiel from Uriel, who's been secretly following Lucifer. In March of 2009, Sam and Dean are zapped to an alternate universe where they aren't brothers or hunters. This is the work of the angel Zachariah, who's trying to convince them to give in to their destiny of being vessels for Michael and Lucifer. A few weeks later, Sam and Dean discover the supernatural books and meet the author Carver Edlund, who's actually a prophet called Chuck Shirley, among other secret identities. In April, they think they meet their half-brother Adam Milligan, but it's actually a ghoul who got revenge on John by killing Adam and his mother, so boo. In May, Cass is removed from his vessel, Jimmy Novak, before he can give Sam and Dean important information. The Winchesters try to protect Jimmy's wife Amelia and his daughter Claire. Cass eventually returns and takes up residence in Jimmy once again. Soon after, Dean locks Sam in Bobby's panic room in an attempt to get him clean. Cass breaks him out at Heaven's command, and Sam goes to Ruby, who feeds him lots of blood. They abduct and kill a woman, and Sam drinks all of her blood so that he can be strong enough to kill Lilith. Then Dean and Cass go to visit Chuck and find out where the 66th seal is. An archangel comes to protect Chuck and explodes Castiel. Both brothers get to the convent in Maryland, and Sam finally kills Lilith. The door to Lucifer's cage is open, and Ruby reveals that this was her plan all along. Before Lucifer escapes, Sam and Dean kill Ruby. Again. Season 5, 2009 to 2010. Season 5 begins just a few days after the end of Season 4. Lucifer is freed, and Sam and Dean are about to be killed in the explosion when God intervenes. He puts them on a plane to Baltimore, which, I guess is better than dying in a fiery blast, and he remakes Castiel. While regrouping at Bobby's, Meg 2.0 shows up. It's Bobby's turn to be possessed by a demon, and he stabs himself to stop from killing Dean. Bobby wakes up in the hospital paralyzed. Cass has been cut off from heaven, so he can't fix Bobby, but he carves warding symbols on Sam and Dean's ribs so angels can't find them. Cass then goes on a quest to find God, borrowing Dean's amulet, which will glow in God's presence. Meanwhile, Lucifer convinces a man named Nick to become his vessel, and Zachariah tells Dean that Dean is in fact the Michael's sword, Michael's true vessel, and that he needs to give Michael permission to wear him to the prom. In the next episode, the boys defeat the Horsemen of the Apocalypse War after he makes a small town turn on each other. After an eventful spring, summer 2009 brings Sam some bad dreams of Jessica, but it's actually Lucifer who tells him that Sam is his true vessel and he has no choice but to agree to be Lucifer's host. Dean is transported by Zachariah to an alternate universe of the future where Sam agrees to be possessed by Lucifer, and the Croatoan virus has created a very 2009 zombie apocalypse. In November, the Trickster traps them in another amazing episode, Changing Channels. He later reveals that he's in fact the angel Gabriel, and he wants Sam and Dean to say yes and just start the apocalypse so they can get this over with. Sometime later, the boys attend a supernatural convention and are told by a fangirl Becky that Bella never gave the colt to Lilith, but to a demon named Crowley. It's also implied that the bank bailouts are the work of a deal made by a banker with Crowley, so I wonder which demon is responsible for climate change. Yet anyway, Crowley then gives them the colt, hoping that they'll kill Lucifer for him. Lucifer traps Cass when he and the brothers confront him. Meg 2.0 sets hellhounds on the others and they maul Joe. Knowing her daughter won't make it, Ellen builds a bomb and kills herself while destroying the hellhounds so Sam and Dean can get away. In early 2010, Anna goes back in time to 1978 to kill John. Michael sets Anna on fire. Michael then reveals that the Winchester bloodline goes back to Cain and Abel, and after all the crazy that's happened in this series, that's really just a drop in the bucket. On Valentine's Day, Sam defeats the Horseman Famine, but only after the demon makes Sam fall off the wagon, which means, of course, Dean locks Sam in the panic room again. In February or March, Sioux Falls Sheriff Jody Mills helps them fight off zombies. Her life is ruined, but we do get a desperately needed awesome female character. Later, Sam and Dean are killed by hunters and go to heaven in the episode that is guaranteed to make you cry every time. They reach the angel Joshua, who speaks to God and finds out that God doesn't care what happens and won't help them. Cass loses his faith. In March of 2010, Dean finally gives in after killing the Whore of Babylon with a bunch of Lutherans and is ready to say yes, as long as heaven promises to protect Lisa and Ben in exchange. As the big showdown gets closer, Michael brings back their half-brother Adam as a vessel, but Dean changes his mind about saying yes and kills Zachariah. Pagan deities gather at a hotel where they intend to kill the brothers to stop the apocalypse. Lucifer shows up though and kills all of them, including his brother Gabriel. Except he's not really dead. Death is like this show's equivalent of having a cold, you can basically walk it off. Gabriel leaves the boys a tape telling them how to stop the apocalypse with the rings of the Four Horsemen. Afterwards, Crowley helps the boys get the Horseman Pestilence's ring. Soon after, Crowley finds Death's location after making a deal with Bobby that gives him his legs back. Dean's the next one to hang with Death, and they share a deep dish pizza that's so good that Death decides to spare the city of Chicago. Honestly, same. Deep dish is pretty dope. Oh god, I want pizza right now. With the four rings, Sam and Dean go to confront Lucifer. Sam says yes, agreeing to be Lucifer's host, and Lucifer takes control of him. Dean finds out from Chuck that Lucifer, Sam, and Michael Adam will fight in a cemetery outside of Lawrence. Cass yells, "ass butt," and sets Michael on fire. Lucifer then promptly explodes him. Sam is able to get control back from Lucifer after a very well done montage and opens the cage. Sam's in control just long enough to grab Michael Adam and seal themselves in the cage. God brings Cass back, who then heals Dean and Bobby. With Lucifer in his custom-made, extra comfy hell cage, along with his host Sam and Adam Michael, that brings us to the end of our first Supernatural timeline. But don't worry, we've got part 2 coming out real soon, and that'll cover all of the bonkers shit that happens in season 6 through 14. Until then, carry on, my wayward son. This is Jacob with Cinematica, and we're gonna keep these timelines going, so do yourself and us a favor and subscribe.